Welcome to the Public-Private Partnership Program. Public-Private Partnership PPP is a new way of doing business with the Malawi government. We will take you through what PPP is, what is involved, who is involved, and the relevance of PPPs. My name is Enid Mauluka and I'm your host for this program. Please stay tuned.
Are you an investor? Are you an entrepreneur? If you are in private sector and you think of working with the public sector, welcome to the Public-Private Partnership, PPP. PPP is now the new way of doing business with the Malawi government. PPP involves a contract between a public sector authority and a private party. The private party provides a public service or project and assumes a substantial financial, technical, and operational risk in the project. So if you think big-time investment, think infrastructure development, think top quality service delivery, think value for money, think PPP. For more information, contact the details on your screen.
A public-private partnership, or PPP, is a legally enforceable contract between a client and a service provider. A client or contracting authority enters into partnership with a private sector service provider to build, expand, improve, or develop infrastructure or service. Both the contracting authority and private sector partner contribute one or more of know-how such as technical skills, financial support such as money, facilities, logistical support, operational management, investment, or other input that is required to successfully deploy a product or service. Both the contracting authority and the private sector partner are compensated according to an agreed plan. Compensation or payment for the product or service is measured according to the risk each player in the agreement undertakes based on the value of the result to be achieved. The value of the result can be a road infrastructure or building infrastructure, for example. In a PPP agreement, the private entity, which is the private company, performs infrastructure service delivery functions that would otherwise have been provided through traditional public sector procurement. The private partner assumes the risks associated with taking on a long-term contract. Such long-term contracts can range from 10 to 50 years. In return, the private entity receives a benefit or financial remuneration according to the predefined performance criteria. On its part, the government generates money from the national budget allocation or from service tariffs or user charges, or a combination of both service tariffs and from national budget to pay or compensate the private party. The government of Malawi has created appropriate policy, legal, and institutional framework for encouraging the private sector in taking a larger role in procuring, financing, operating, and maintaining infrastructure projects and services in the public sector through well-designed PPPs. The framework provides the broad environment whereby ministries and public contracting agencies directly responsible for the program areas identify and develop potential PPPs in light of government overall social and economic priorities.
Are you an investor? Are you an entrepreneur? If you are in private sector and you think of working with the public sector, welcome to the Public-Private Partnership, PPP. PPP is now the new way of doing business with the Malawi government. PPP involves a contract between a public sector authority and a private party. The private party provides a public service or project and assumes a substantial financial, technical, and operational risk in the project. So if you think big-time investment, think infrastructure development, think top-quality service delivery, think value for money, think PPP. For more information, contact the details on your screen.
The definition of PPP may seem technical and hard for other people to understand. How would you define the PPP concept in the layperson's language?
I think in very simple terms, it is an effort by the government of Malawi to involve the private sector in terms of provision of infrastructure and public services. And the way it operates is that the public sector invites private sector to develop, finance, and operate infrastructure for purposes of delivery of public services, particularly in areas that traditionally have been the responsibility of government.
In 2011, the government of Malawi approved the PPP policy framework to promote investment in infrastructure development in the country as one tenet of spurring economic growth. The PPP policy framework, therefore, will be used as a new form of procuring and financing infrastructure projects and services in the public sector. Under the Malawi Growth and Development Strategy, MGDS Phase 2, which outlines the government strategy for the medium term, the government has identified the agriculture and food security sector, energy, industrial development, mining and tourism sectors, transport infrastructure and inland ports, education, science and technology, public health, sanitation, malaria and HIV and AIDS management, integrated rural development, green belt irrigation and water development, child development, youth development and empowerment, climate change, natural resources and environmental management sectors as priorities within priorities for implementing the PPPs in the country. The economic strategy being pursued by the government of Malawi through the PPPs seeks to reduce poverty through economic growth and to transform Malawi into more of an export-based economy fully integrated in the new global economic environment. The overall competitiveness of the economy will be bolstered through investments, especially those directed towards improving and expanding infrastructure. The government of Malawi has recognized that there is a need to explore more private sector involvement in the delivery of services and infrastructure in the country through public-private partnerships, PPPs, as a major means of uplifting Malawi out of poverty. The Malawi Economic Growth and Development Strategy, MGDS, supports the concept of strengthening the cooperation between the private and public sectors in order to improve the macroeconomic environment for business growth. Aside from the contribution that the privatization program has made in introducing the private sector participation in the economy, the importance of PPPs in mobilizing private sector resources to spur economic growth and improve the nation's infrastructure development in Malawi is critical. PPPs are not new to Malawi because several forms of PPPs have been implemented in Malawi without necessarily calling them as such. They have actually been achieved on an ad hoc basis without the backing of a clear policy and legal framework.
Are you an investor? Are you an entrepreneur? If you are in private sector and you think of working with the public sector, welcome to the Public-Private Partnership, PPP. PPP is now the new way of doing business with the Malawi government. PPP involves a contract between a public sector authority and a private party. The private party provides a public service or project and assumes a substantial financial, technical, and operational risk in the project. So if you think big-time investment, think infrastructure development, think top quality service delivery, think value for money, think PPP. For more information, contact the details on your screen.
One of the facilities for promoting the PPPs is establishment of the commercial court to speed up resolution of commercial disputes, promote investor access to land, and speedy registration of new businesses. PPPs allow each party to concentrate on activities that best suit their set of skills and strategic objective. For the public sector, this not only means planning and identifying infrastructure and public service needs and focusing on developing national, local, and sector-specific policies, but it also means overseeing enforcement of the PPP agenda. The public sector retains a significant role in the PPP arrangement or project, either as the main purchaser of the services provided or as the main enabler of the project. It purchases services and specifies the service outputs or outcomes required, as well as the performance criteria which triggers payments to the private sector. For the private sector, the key is to deliver effectively infrastructure and facilities required by the private sector and consumers at the project level. Usually, in a PPP arrangement, the private party provides the design, construction, operation maintenance, and financing for the project, and the private party is paid according to performance. Risks are identified and placed best with the party able to bear them and manage them at the lowest cost. In this case, the private party is best suited to manage this aspect. There is always a shared responsibility for providing the required infrastructure or services. The significant level of risk is usually taken on by the private party. An example will be an infrastructure project that links the design and construction with one or all of the finance, operation, and maintenance element being borne by the private party. For the public sector, it will be the long-term commitment to providing the quality public services to consumers through this contractual arrangement with the private operator. Under this arrangement, there is better value for money. There is also optimal allocation of risk by exploiting the private sector competitiveness in managerial, financial, and innovation over the period of the project's life cycle. The arrangement also promotes the cross-transfer of skills between private party and public parties. There is a clear distinction between a PPP arrangement under which the private party supplies public infrastructure and public services on behalf of the state for a contract period and the sale of specific state's assets, that is divestiture, to the market. A PPP project typically requires the establishment of what is called a special purpose vehicle, SPV, by the private party. A special purpose vehicle is a locally incorporated company which is a legal entity with no other activity other than those in the agreement which is connected to the borrowing.
Are you an investor? Are you an entrepreneur? If you are in the private sector and you think of working with the public sector, welcome to the Public-Private Partnership, PPP. PPP is now the new way of doing business with the Malawi government. PPP involves a contract between a public sector authority and a private party. The private party provides a public service or project and assumes a substantial financial, technical, and operational risk in the project. So if you think big-time investment, think infrastructure development, think top quality service delivery, think value for money, think PPP. For more information, contact the details on your screen.
In this program, we introduce the concept of PPPs. The public-private partnership is a legally enforceable contract between a service provider and a client. A service provider is usually a private entity, while a client is usually public sector or government. We discussed the government policy framework regarding PPPs. We also discussed the scope of PPPs and how to identify a PPP arrangement or project. We invite you to join in this program next time as we talk about the benefits of PPPs to the general public and the government, as well as other aspects regarding the PPPs. The Public-Private Partnership Program is implemented by the Public-Private Partnership Commission. See you next time.
Are you an investor? Are you an entrepreneur? If you are in private sector and you think of working with the public sector, welcome to the Public-Private Partnership, PPP. PPP is now the new way of doing business with the Malawi government. PPP involves a contract between a public sector authority and a private party.